Welcome, everybody. So, this is the Bullish Tech Show, right? Did I say it right?
I think so.
That's right. Excellent pronunciation. Enunciation, whichever one.
Okay. So, as most of you guys know, everybody, but for those of you who don't, there's Brantley,
Hey.
Michael,
Hello, everyone.
that you can't see. Then there's Proctor,
Hello.
and Nick, and Tank again, that you can't
Hi.
see.
What do
Well,
you
I
mean you
think
can't see? There's a tank
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah, there's a
I'm-
tank. That's exactly what he looks like in real life. I don't know what you're talking about, Johnny. Have you seen him and stared into
I'm
his
not
one evil
blind.
eye down that turret? Yeah.
Nope, I never looked at his one evil eye down the turret. Sorry.
Sorry, folks.
And on that note, everybody have a good evening.
So as for today's show, Brantley just said that he would discuss it once we're live.
Yep, I will. And catching up on chat here. We have a couple questions in chat. The first one I need to go ahead and check on right now because it's important. Is FilthX is asking if dCloud is down. Filth, if you're watching here, can you let me know which dCloud? Because neither of them should be down, but I'm double checking them right now. Otherwise, the topic I wanted to go over was since today is Johnny/Tank host day, we're gonna, and they haven't been techs all their life. I think we're gonna discuss some computer basics. Just some random things that we as techs may be taking for granted that they might not know, and helps for every tech to know, and might help some of our other viewers out there to know. So, just give me a couple more moments. Let me verify and double check this dCloud thing because that's a little important.
Yeah, I'm testing my login. There might be something going on. Let's see.
Everything looks like it's running, so I restarted it.
Oh, I just hit the test login. Oh, I know why that's not going to work because I forgot to change.
I was about to say, you might want
Yeah.
to for you.
Okay, yeah, so let me just update that and yeah, so that's good. That's all working. I don't see any problems.
I'm
I
testing.
haven't got any, we haven't got any other tickets today related to that, right guys? Right, Johnny and Tank?
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything.
Yeah, so neither have I. And so I can't reproduce that issue.
So, PhilThex, if you're watching, which product and what issue are you seeing there? Because it doesn't appear that we are seeing anything on our side with it. And I just double checked dCloud. It looks like people have been logging in, but I restarted it just in case. So they should be all good to go. But let us know in the chat there if you're seeing issues or something. Awesome, yeah.
Just wrote back, yeah.
That was a very good episode. We felt too. We covered a lot of topics and
Oh yeah, that was great.
did some good things
What's
in
that?
that one. So he said, PhilThex said he was trying to watch the episode we uploaded last night, but was so busy today. So he's looking forward to it and really wanted to use D7 and dFunk for malware removal. So thanks us for that episode, even though he hasn't watched it yet. No worries, no worries. I'm apparently having issues talking today myself, so. Um, and I don't even have a phone interface to blame. So, uh, anyway, Philtex, if you are watching now, did you double check your dCloud issue? Because we're not seeing that. Maybe it was some fluke in the internet. Pipes might have been full, flushing out. Now they're okay. Definitely let us know if you're still having issues with that. We'll try to check out more and what you're having issues with explicitly.
There have been reports of various security appliances blocking access to our domain. So I don't know if your security software and or hardware status has changed, but that could possibly be a point, an area to research, Philthex, if you know you're still
Someone
having trouble.
today.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we got that. All right, so the topic for today, I was thinking that we could do something like just go over some computer basics with Windows.
Yeah, I like that. Wasn't there a question actually in the chat that was kind of a relatively basic question? Or, hey, has anyone else had issues recently with a bunch of their system reloads reserving large chunks of computer RAM?
And that was by
Arkanoff? Yeah, I mean that's not let's say a basic question, but I mean that kind of maybe we can go over some topics about RAM, in more detail. Just a thought. Just a thought.
I mean, honestly, I haven't seen any weird issues like that. I do have a large amount of RAM, but my biggest issues are that freaking web browsers now are just consuming so much RAM.
Yeah, but all of the vendors have actually done things to mitigate that scenario. In fact, in an update to Windows 10 that should come out at some point, they're going to actually compress older pages in RAM to reduce their size. This would be extremely effective on the web page scenario like that. But there's also a lot of plugins which will put tabs to sleep, so otherwise, allow them to give up the memory that they're using. But it's not uncommon for me to use multiple gigs of RAM solely on my browsing habits. But I don't think that's what he's talking about. He's talking about just like a system reload. Now, I mean, obviously, as you know, doing a reload.
Maybe he's talking about this because I have been noticing this recently, and I hadn't seen this before. Give me a second.
Okay, sure.
Here, let me.
Because I didn't really. Yeah, I wasn't really.
Cherie's here.
Oh, hey,
Cherie!
We're gonna big turnout today.
Got me to say hey.
Hey.
Hey, maybe we could get Cherie on the show and talk to her about.
Oh, we would love to. Now, this is the same person I'm thinking it is, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So I have noticed this one, and maybe you all can confirm as well. But I've been this, and I think this may be what they're talking about. Is like right now, my system process is taking up 2.5 gigs of RAM. Why? I don't know.
Geez, I haven't really been looking at that, but let's take a look.
That's a lot of RAM for a system process that I don't know what it's doing or why.
Something with Cortana, maybe?
Possibly. Let's open up Process Explorer here. That might give us a few more details there.
Yeah, my system is using 1.2 gigs of memory, which again is a lot more than I ever remember it using before. What the hell? So yes, you're absolutely right, Arkanon. We seem to be experiencing it as well. There's Cortana. It's using very little memory.
Well, now I don't know which one is system. And I don't even think that's the same RAM. So I'm not seeing all the. Oh, there we go. We gotta scroll up. That's why.
You see, the scrolling is a big thing. We've both found out today, Brantley and myself, that maybe moving your window around and scrolling is a appropriate thing to do from time to time.
Awesome, and actually shout out to the Future Technology IT crew. Just to throw that out there.
Who's the future technology IT crew?
I would imagine Sheree.
Oh, goodness gracious. I didn't look at that. I just remember Cherie. I don't remember where she was. I'm sorry, Cherie. But I'll know next time.
She's talking in chat if you want to join in there.
Yeah.
I will do that in a moment. I'm doing some code.
Oh, sure. And we got a suggestion, regarding putting chapters into our previous videos to allow them to more easily be skipped around in. If that's something we can do, Brantley, we will, I guess.
Possibly. I mean, just editing that video to edit out our crap took.
It's very time consuming. It's very time consuming. So we'll see what we can do, but because we're producing these on a daily basis, it's not always possible for us to do spend an extreme amount of time, editing them. But we'll see.
That RAM thing may be related to Firefox, because I'm seeing this amount of RAM for system, but Firefox is only showing me this amount of RAM. And yet over here in Process Explorer, Firefox is actually showing me about the same amount of RAM as system. So I'm not sure where that discrepancy is. And even still, I don't see this 1 gigabyte of RAM from Chrome.
I have Firefox open as well, and it's only I only have 2 tabs in Firefox. Or what? That can't be right.
And that's a large discrepancy in RAM display between Process Explorer and Task Manager. So who knows? That was not one of the simple topics I was going to go over with.
No, it seems to be a lot more involved than we originally thought. RAM
consumption is never a simple topic.
No, but I did want to reiterate there that Microsoft is making some behind-the-scenes changes about how things are occurring there, and it may just be a cosmetic issue of some sort.
But
it could also be something to that.
The thing to always remember about RAM is if you're running out, get more, and don't download it. You have to buy it.
There is. I hope no one out there has been fooled by any of that in the past. But at one point in time, particularly for Johnny and Tank, at one point in time, it was very common to download these, because everyone wanted to compress their hard drives to increase the space, and so started to come out with things. Oh, we'll compress the RAM or what have you, and effectively, all it was, doing is retiring stuff to disk prematurely. If that at all, but effectively there's no way to increase RAM beyond actually buying RAM, and anything that sounds too good to be true probably is, with the exception of CryptoPrevent, of course.
Alright, nice. And Shree said it's not a problem not remembering, Nick. You
Oh, thank you.
What
happens at Spice World mostly stayed at Spice World, but I just have pictures of us, and a couple things.
Yes.
And Tree, Nick was offering, if you have a video cam and preferably a headset, mic and speakers, we could let you join in on the Hangout, and we can DM you a link to that if you wanted to join in and talk with us on air. Otherwise, I was going to say
she can do that without video too, and some people actually prefer it. You're allowed the opportunity to disable that before you actually enter the.
You don't have to have video, like.
So, for instance, that would be.
We just like a headset and mic because the feedback is crazy.
Yeah, feedback's terrible.
Sometimes echo and.
It's very hard to hear. Anyway, My topics were going to be a little bit more simpler along the lines of Windows internals, like file systems and various options there, registry and the various hives and things, those kind of things. Like those, I feel are kind of important basic computer concepts, especially when working with Windows, that you should kind of know something about, if not a lot about. And we kind of all know about those. We just kind of take those for granted, like permissions and where things may end up in the registry and cleaning out registry and various things like that.
And
And
we take
what is a registry again? What is a registry again, Brantley?
Why we would look at the registry versus looking at the file system for
and we take that for granted because we use D7 and it does all that stuff for us. Remember?
That's
That-
part of that's part. Of it.
and that we've been doing it forever using both of those. Like,
But for
you wouldn't
those
know
that
what
aren't
D7
in the
is.
know, maybe we could go over a basic what is a registry and what's contained within it and why it's important.
Oh gosh, I hope Cherie has a headset because that would be so much better. Anyway,
Okay, I
Good.
think we've already discussed that.
Go for it, Michael. What is a registry? Let's start.
Okay, well, so prior to Windows 95, typically most applications in Windows itself had stored settings in various INI files, INI files, except files with extension .ini, which are essentially text files which had basically
when you
a setting
say
and a value.
any, I think of ANY, not INI.
Sorry.
So it's bad to do acronyms like that.
NI, initialization file, if you will, or something like that. But basically, these were text files that ended in .ini that contained settings, basically, and values. So the name of the setting equals, and then some value.
I mean,
And
I don't think we really need to get into history. It's not like they're going to be using anything that's
okay.
actually-
Well, at any rate, that was how programs basically stored the data that they needed to continue to operate, and maybe even stored window positions and other various types of things. Long story short is that turned out to leave a mess of INI files spread all over the hard disk, and nobody. INI files spread out all
I
over
was
the
about
hard
to correct
disk,
them, too.
and it would be very difficult to manipulate and do things. So they wanted a place basically to store that information that was more internalized into Windows, kind of put it all into one place, because they were it's a very important information typically, and having them all spread out like that wasn't the best course of action. So at least not what they thought. So they developed this indexed hierarchical structure that contains what are known as hives. That's the hierarchy. Each hive has various keys in it that can be accessed, and it basically serves the same purpose as those INI files did of old. It stores settings and values for those settings. And now, as applications do, they update these values all the time. If you ever have an application that remembers something, odds are if it's not written to a file somewhere on the drive, like maybe a contact database or something of that nature, it's stored in the registry. The registry also controls Windows behaviors, what happens when you start up, what applications are run, and tons of other little facets. Malware loves the registry because it used to be that end users were actively editing the file, so if anything changed abruptly, users would be in a position to do that. But since the registry kind of removed the user's view of all those settings, it was very easy for malware to misuse the registry to do bad things to a computer. And so one of the tools we have within d7II is dFunk, and one of its features not only is file system scanning, but also registry scanning for keys that are malicious, and there's whitelisting and blacklisting to go along with that. And the idea is with a combination of files and settings, you can completely remove any sort of infection or anything unwanted from the computer. But
Right,
using
real
just
quick.
one or the other is probably not gonna
Tank or
cut that.
Johnny, did you pick up anything from any of that Michael just rambled on about?
Just that we should say I and not any.
And that was the least important of everything that I discussed.
Awesome. I think it was the most important.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that.
All right, not a problem. Sheree said she's got a lot going on, so she's not going to be able to join. So
Cool. Totally
Not-
cool, but keep us in mind one day.
yeah, well, you see our schedule on foolishit.com/live. Any of those days, if you just ping us, we'll be more than happy to have you on. So it was very nice.
Cherie's
to meet you.
awesome because I wanted to talk with her, and I told her at the event, just to tell people, I actually wanted to talk with her about how we can improve d7II, because she uses it. The first thing she does is get all of her techs. When she gets a new tech, she sits them down with it, for a little bit until they know what they're doing. And it would be nice to have. Like, she's awesome. I talked with her a little bit, and technical things come up, and she was very, very experienced, and I could tell that she had she had something to say.
I would even
basically.
like to talk to her about her process of sitting a tech down and getting them to know d7II, like what kinds of things she hits on and points and things like that.
Yeah, I want to know how she's got it set up, and actually even talking with their guys at some point would be cool about, like, hey, what's the problem? Or just her doing it and then telling us, hey, what's the problem, if there is one, or what could be better.
Yeah. So, anyway, keep that in mind, Sharif. We'll be here any time.
She said they're all listening.
Yeah.
Hey.
All right, so I think a little bit better way for someone that hasn't been introduced, instead of going into all that technical jargon,
Damn it.
background, is just showing you the registry.
Let me say this, Brantley.
Yeah, go for it.
The registry, just to put it in a nutshell, is a huge repository for all the settings for Windows and for all the software installed on the computer. And all that used to be stored in INI files prior to the registry.
Did I not just say this?
Yeah, I just made it real simple.
Yeah.
Everything about it. I just put it
said
in a nutshell.
Michael, yeah.
And it
Doctor, that was perfect. Michael.
To say it.
And normally,
Go ahead, Brantley.
the way I look at the registry is it's kind of like a set of instructions for Windows.
Yeah.
If I would give my view, and it's not really a view, technically it's a database.
A database of instructions, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 5 different hives that you normally deal with, and you can see they're all labeled H key. Classes root, I believe, is all of the extensions and how everything is handled for Windows for those extensions, and probably has a lot more in there. I honestly don't have a deep, thorough understanding of it, so if any of you guys have a more detailed explanation for any of these, feel free to jump in.
Sure.
For like what I'm explaining. So like classes root, that's just where it stores all the extensions and how Windows handles each of those file extensions.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of junk in there too. There's a lot more in there, but like DLLs that get registered, for example, all that info goes in there.
Mhm.
ActiveX controls, stuff like that. So I find myself in there for version conflicts sometimes with DLLs here lately, but but classes root it's also essentially made up of it's sort of a virtual hive that's copied from 2 physical files that would be the current user's registry hive and then the actual local machine registry hive. So just a combination of those 2. And that's like local machine / software / micro classes or something.
So yeah, that's one of the things I didn't know about it, is that it's a combination. I knew that there was a classes in both of these, but I didn't know that this was.
It's got exactly the same data, except obviously the classes root has both the key from local machine and the key from current user. Although current user does not necessarily have much in it, but.
And normally I don't find myself in here very much at all. And you're saying most of the time was only for DLL conflicts.
I'll say this. I wasn't in classes root, but somewhere in there, there was some malware a few years ago. I don't recall what it was, but I do remember. You know what? No, I think Zero Access was using it.
Yeah.
One of the earlier variants of Zero Access. That's what it was. You okay? Proctor's got it. That when I developed KillZA, I was in there because there's like a legitimate type lib or something for Windows that would exist in local machine but not in current user, and it was the malware, Zero Access was, or this particular variant of it was creating an entry in place in current user of the same name as the legitimate thing in local machine. So the current user takes precedence over local machine.
And that's only when that user is logged in that's used on.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. So it was like so it would be like, yeah, it would be a user specific infection, or at least that particular method, but that was just one of the many hooks that it had. But into the system, but yeah, I mean, it's perfectly feasible to assume that you'll be in there for malicious software removal at some point in time if you do it manually. If not today, then it's some point down the road.
And that really brings us into the next two, which is local machine and current user. These two are probably going to be the most likely places that you'll be searching for things, and that's where dFunk spends a lot of its time in the registry section tab, is on places that are located in here. And these are kind of like everything that Windows does is normally going to be based off of something in one of these two hives. And as Nick mentioned, the current user one is kind of basically the same setup. It just over.
Yeah, it trumps the local machine. Think of local machine more or less as a system default, and then the current user as a custom setting. Yeah. If you want to think of it that way, I mean that's mostly how it works. But the current user stuff is just to basically separate those settings between the users, but then there still has to be that system default. What I was just saying a minute ago about the malware utilizing the current user in the classes for something as opposed to the local machine, it would have been detected a lot easier by antivirus software had they went into the legitimate entry in local machine and changed that value to do their malicious thing. Instead, they just created that key in current user. It avoided detection because I guess no one was looking there. It wasn't supposed to exist there. But because it did, it trumped the setting in local machine.
And while we're on that, why there's two different ones, let's check out the locations of those. So these are actually files, like Nick said, they're kind of like databases, and databases have to be stored in a file somewhere. So
I'm sorry. Can I just before I forget, because I'm about to zone out, but I do want to say, Tank and everyone else that just got something from what I said. Current user doesn't always trump local machine. Depending on the setting, sometimes it's additive. If it's like the same name and everything, then it'll trump it. But if it's not, it will be an additive effect. So like the run keys like have this program and this program in current user, and in local machine would have this program and program C and D. You know, A, B, C, and D are all going to fire up when you log in.
And actually,
anyway.
Nick, I would prefer if you didn't zone out, because I think your opinion on these matters is very helpful.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Cool. All right.
Because you were saying that you can explain things and that's what you wanted to train with Tank, is you can explain things well, and you have a lot of good information to add. So I would prefer if this episode you did focus on some.
Okay. All right. All right.
Dang it, that's not where those are. Where are those? Where are the system registry hives?
System 32 config.
I was close.
And system.
Come on, what's wrong with you? Config. I forgot I was on mute. I was talking. But,
well, go back to that.
Oh.
No, I'm just kidding. So you can see here you have your similar names here: SAM, Security Software System. These are your registry hives for the system. So the local machine overall system is stored in Windows System 32 config. Your user ones are actually going to end up under those specific users. And yeah, I know I don't have hidden files shown, so give me one moment.
Excellent.
And I'll go ahead and point out that the Hive files are not necessarily, they don't necessarily correspond all to the same individual H key branches. That's not the case. Like a current user is the Hive files from the ntduser.dat from the user profile directory that Brantley is about to show you, but the like local machine is made up of the SAM and security, the software and the system Hive. So. And then classes root, like I said, was made up of things then from the user and from the local machine. So it gets like
and
technically the ntduser.dat and then the software Hive. But
if you saw the software one in there, you notice it's very large. And again, most applications write a ton of data to the registry, and so that's why you'll see that one be particularly large. Also, I think Brantley, what were you searching for before? Were you searching for hosts, or were you trying to find the host file?
That's what that was what I was mixed up with, was hosting.
Okay. But it's important to know where they are. So for the sole purpose of even having to manipulate them on a file system or back them up level, it's important to note where that data is and the absolute distinction between the user portion of the registry and otherwise.
Yep. So again, the local machine ones are going to be under System32 config, and the user ones are going to be under ntUser.dat. And you can see they kind of make some backups and logs for each of them.
There's another one buried in app data somewhere. It's the USR class.dat that also is.
Oh, I didn't.
So that's actually classes. Yeah, it's buried in there somewhere. It's like USR class.dat.
Let's just search for that because I don't know where that is, obviously.
Just USR, not USER.
Yeah.
So the whole. I don't know why they didn't just take an S off of class, but it's the whole 8.3 file name thing that goes back to.
It's not finding it quickly, but the key point in knowing where these are is that system restore. So this is your system restore, and we'll get a little bit more into this. I think next week we'll do more in depth on the file system and where things are. Oh, I can't even access system restore anymore.
Yeah, I know. You need to fire up D7 and take permissions on. I mean, I can't believe you're sitting here doing all this and without D7.
Well, for the learning potential, none of us had D7, or D7II for that matter.
Well, you don't have to. You can show them, how to easily get to the System32 folder and through the D7 menu, for example. I mean, and you can say, hey, this is where it is, but also at the same time demonstrate how to get there really quick too. That would probably be helpful for the people.
Okay.
Stuff like that, and where you, of course, in the folders where you can add your own folders if you want. You can add anything there you want. But no, go to the other. What was the other thing? Taking permissions. You've got the shell extensions installed, right?
Now I do.
Okay. All right. Go to the and do it that way, and do take control. It's under action. Take ownership / permissions. Okay, I wrote it out. UAC prompt. I take it.
So just apply defaults.
Yeah, do it. Yeah. That's just a little interface. You can change a few options there, but yeah, you should be able to open her up now.
All right, so now I can get into
That was
this
easy
folder.
as folk. That was easy, guys. Wasn't that? You
Yeah,
know?
having to manually change those permissions and go in and understand the permissions ultimately is, yeah, it'd be nice if you knew that information, but you
Also,
know,
when you do it through
it's right
Explorer,
there.
here's another little thing. If you do it through Explorer, your Explorer window is going to be locked into that while it's doing the search and permissions change on every single individual little file. So you're going to have to wait until it's done before you can access that directory. If you do it through d7II, it all runs in the background, and of course the first thing it does is do the directory itself, and then it starts working on the subs and files. So you can immediately
Yeah, that's
after
true.
doing that, go and start navigating the directory structure that you
That
can
alone, I've seen on larger directory structures take a tremendous amount of time, and I don't know if anybody's ever done that out there, but it
Yeah.
saves me. This is where minutes and minutes and minutes and minutes and minutes of time are
And
saved.
it'll really do that in system volume information. Anywhere else, there's going to be a lot of small files even.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely. So that's
it looks
critical.
like they've changed around where they store those hives now, because or they just have it off by default possibly now.
I think it's a little different, yeah.
But used to, in XP especially, you would have under System Restore, you would have your list of the backups of System Restore, and it would actually
It
create
would
a
be
copy.
RP001, RP002,
Yeah,
or the directory names, and each directory would represent a restore point.
and it would actually have a backup of all those files, so you could easily copy those and put them back into config here.
Now, well, the backups of the files, at least now, it's all volume shadow copy, and you would probably need to access that with VSS admin or with Shadow Explorer, that one app.
Shadow Explorer.
Yeah.
I believe Nick's right on that one.
But you can get to everything that way, at least as far as the files are concerned. But actually, where the registry hives are kept at the moment, I'm not certain. But I would imagine they're actually just in the same directory path when you would use Shadow Explorer to look for the copies. So that's where I would imagine they would be.
Well, and it does have System Restore on, so they got to be somewhere, but it's not showing up in previous versions. And yeah, so anyway, there's normally some ways that you can get that with System.
Try Shadow Explorer, but whatever.
I don't have that.
I would get that. Well, I don't know. I'll look into it. We'll get back to that for another show.
Yeah, we'll come back to the file system for another show here. So yeah, there's the user class stat, and that looks like it's under app data local Microsoft Windows. So that's where you
and I'm just going to guess here because I'm not 100% if it's that or the nt-user.dat, but my guess here is those are the items that are in classes and that get copied to classes root, key classes root. So
that would make sense off of the name in there.
Yeah.
Alright, so let's open up Regedit again here and look at these. Always be defaulting to that.
Yeah.
Alright, so those are those. The HKey user is actually your other users that are on the system and their hives. So you can look at them all and they give them this weird cryptic number. Do you know why it gives it that number?
That's your SID, the security identifier for the user account.
Yeah. And that will probably
the first three that you're looking at are system accounts. They're all like, I forget which one is local system, but they're all the system account. And then there's or a system account, and then the big strings are your user. In HKey users, you will have an exact copy of HKey current user in there.
Yes.
And you will also, and there's another one for the classes. Now here's the thing though. If you don't log into every user on that system before going to Regedit, you're not going to see all of their junk
in here.
Yeah. Which is why with D7 I load the registry hives. So anytime like with dFunk or anything like I'm working on cleaning, all the like for multiple user accounts, I always load the registry hive, the ntuser.dat from the other and the user class. I always get that from the other. I mean from the actual directory structure and load that into a folder under local machine called guest, and it'll be like guest underscore and then the user's name. And so that's how I do that with. See, there's a guest underscore default.
Mm-hmm.
That's because that registry hive in the default user directory and the user profile is not loaded even under HKey users, so it gets loaded like that. Just a little FYI.
I want to load up dFunk and see if we can see those registry changes.
Registry changes.
Would it show in here? No, it doesn't show in here. I thought when
What do you mean?
Yeah, what are you talking about?
So when you load up dFunk and look at all the registry stuff,
Mm-hmm.
is it not loading all of the guest hives?
Yes. Yeah.
So wouldn't they show up in here?
Mm-hmm. They would.
Oh, you mean dynamically reload the registry?
Yeah. That's what. But they're already loaded, and you have no user accounts other than the default.
Okay. So if only if we had multiple users, then they would actually.
Right.
Gotcha.
Right. It's not going to load the hive. It can't even load a hive that is already loaded by regedit.
Yeah. Okay. So why does it keep closing out my registry?
So I mean, just if you had another user named Michael, then you would see guest underscore Michael right under the guest underscore.
I take offense at that.
Yeah, I take offense. I would never have Michael on my computer.
And also, when you're working on an offline system with D7, it loads those and loads of course, the local machine hives as well to work with those. And those would be loaded like guest underscore software, guest underscore system, etc. Because obviously that's what they are. But yeah, D7 does all of that for you, of course, and of course it does those checks with the dFunk and all that other stuff. It does this. It knows.
Yep. So let's go over some of the ones in local machine, and then we'll come back to the user to show where the similarities are. The biggest one I always find myself in is going to be the software registry, because that's where most all of your instructions and settings are going to be stored, and you can see all of the programs that I have installed here. And they all use kind of their own route of handling things. You can see the classes is also here, and that's where Nick was saying it's combined into classes root. And you can just see the random keys we have. We have foolish ITs, we have Dell for some reason in here, Microsoft, Mozilla, NVIDIA, just all your various ones. But also, this is where Microsoft uses a lot of their own registry keys, and this is where it affects Windows. So you have one that's Microsoft, and it has tons and tons of Microsoft-related keys. These are basically like all of your settings in Windows. Microsoft, Windows, and Windows NT are probably your two primary, most used, most often ones. But all of these keys have something important for some feature or function or something in there. And probably something else we should have mentioned before we got into the registry is if you don't know what you're doing in here, don't just come around and start playing in it. Making changes, deleting things, you can completely break your Windows copy and not be able to start up that system without a system restore or reload. So highly, highly dangerous area to be playing around in, and anywhere that normally has you looking at the registry or tells you to go change something in the registry is normally all and for good reason.
Right.
So,
Oh, yeah.
Another
Typically,
place.
if a registry change is needed to be enacted, let's say to fix a bug or whatever, most software manufacturers will put out a registry file or something like that as part of maybe an update or something like that to update it. You do need to know how to manually edit it, though, and it's very critical to understand that. But as he said, it's changed in real time, and there's not really a whole lot of undo functionality within the registry, and you can cause a lot of damage. So this is also one of the reasons why we don't allow or don't like to have client end users access d7II because of that power, because it can do things in the registry as well.
And
So
a
keep
lot
that
of
in
these
mind.
settings too are innate and don't really do much as far as in terms of malware removal or fixing a computer. Most of your third-party programs, when you uninstall, it removes the registry items. If not, when you reinstall it, it overwrites them. So that's usually your better route to take. If you have a third-party program, uninstall and reinstall it will redo its registry
That's
values
a
how
good
it
point.
needs to be
Mhm.
done.
All right.
Your Microsoft ones, obviously you don't want to be continuously reinstalling Microsoft Windows. But some other key one I wanted to point out in here was going to be the policies, and this is where group policies get applied to your computer. Things like software restriction policies, which CryptoPrevent takes advantage of, is done in here. And where was that? Is it in T? No. Windows? Yeah, Windows Safer Code Identifiers. That's your software restriction policies that CryptoPrevent takes advantage of to help block malware there. But tons and tons and tons of info in here. The other things that are important in here is it stores all of your security information, and the SAM, that's what the SAM is where it actually stores your Windows passwords and credentials all hashed up and things like that. So it's not plain
Well, it's
text.
encrypted. You won't. Yeah, this is not. It's been a long while since operating system vendors have unencrypted have that unencrypted, and the encryption that it uses is pretty tight there. So wouldn't suggest anybody just thinking that they can copy a SAM file and get everyone's passwords. That's certainly not the case.
Yeah, well, there are tools out there like OPH Crack that can assist with recovering lost passwords if you need to get back into your Windows.
Yes, absolutely,
But
absolutely.
use those things appropriately. The other big thing that Registry does is it manages your hardware and drivers, so you can have all of your devices that connect and talk with Windows. This is where most of those things are handled. Your driver database, where it searches and compares Windows drivers, are there in any
Now,
hardware.
you previously said that you could just reinstall an application. Now, most applications do generally would write a default set of values to the registry keys when it's reinstalled, but I have seen, there is the case of persistent settings. For instance, when you uninstall CryptoPrevent, I believe it asks you if you want to remove the registration details from the registry. So the idea is that on future installs, it would just look at that key and pull the data from it and automatically register it for you. So there are some cases where reinstalling the software will not resolve an issue, and you would have to manually go into the registry and manually make a change. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yep, and what you can actually do with dFunk is if you've uninstalled a software and reinstalled it and you're still having the same issues with it, you can use dFunk, and once it loads up here, you can go in and search the registry quickly for that program name. So if we go in and pull up dFunk here, we can type in, let's just do Chrome. And we can search the registry only. Can't we? you can search the registry only for Chrome, and it comes back with this list of items. So you could delete these items from the registry and then reinstall Chrome. So if some persistent setting is still in there, you can go in and remove it and then reinstall Chrome, and that should normally fix up most of your issues. That's something we had to do a lot of times with older programs.
I was on mute and just talking about this, Brantley. That's so amazing. We were thinking about the exact same thing at the same time. That's a good point, though. Thank you.
While we're
You
in
always happen to be on mute when you're talking about the same thing Brantley does.
Yeah, how convenient. While we're in dFunk, we can actually go ahead and show you some of the most important parts to check in the registry, and that's what this was really developed for. Was back in the XP days when we didn't have any of these kind of tools. Nick and I were going through the registry and checking these locations, and it's hard to remember, especially while you're working on multiple computers, if you've checked all these locations, if you've gone back and checked these locations, which locations to get especially. So this is the really nice thing in dFunk, giving you the specific places in the registry that you should kind of glance over and make sure nothing's coming up in. Embedded JavaScript, I'm assuming that's just where JavaScript files get stored. I haven't really seen anything in there. Is there more that you want to throw on that topic, Nick?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Embedded JavaScript in dFunk.
Oh. Not really. I don't actually. I'll have to see a result and do a Google. I'll be honest with you. I thought you told me to put that in there. Someone did.
It's possible, but
Someone did. It's been
normally
since I was teching that I put that in there.
I normally don't see anything in here, so if you do see something show up in this result, that's definitely something to research and find out more of why it's showing up there. Because that would be something, I mean, anything that is in here, there was malware or some reason that needed to have this checked, so that's why it's in here. Run and run once values, these are under the Microsoft Windows, and this is what it tells to start up your computer. Most all of your startup cleaners, even with Windows Task Manager now that has the startup section, it's just reading items that are in here, and you can see pretty much most of those match up to what is in here. That is kind of nice that they included that in Task Manager, especially since that's been one of the largest problems with Windows and running slow, is having programs always decide they want to start up as soon as your computer starts. I've pretty much cleaned up most of mine, so I don't have anything random in here that doesn't need to be running all the time, but there are examples out there of programs that there's no reason for them to be running at startup. It would just be you would want them running whenever you needed to run them. So cleaning out these definitely helps out, and this is definitely a spot where malware likes to hide to start up every time the system starts up. Legacy load run values, I think that's just a combination of other values that were before run and run once became the default values.
Well, there was ways to those INI files, remember back in the day, and they're still supported to some extent in Windows, these files. Even configsys and AutoExec back, if anyone can remember those from DOS days, is supported at least in some form or another, even within Windows 10 to some extent. So some of those additional locations could be, and I don't know for a fact exactly. I'd have to think what John was thinking or what Nick was thinking at the time, but basically it may be pulling those from there was a equivalent run line in those files that would do something similar to these run keys in the registry, and that's still oftentimes possible for software to write something into those old files and still have Windows react to it. I'm not clear, where Windows 10 stands with that these days, because that's going back up. I would guess that Nick might have been looking at some of those things as well.
All right, and looks like they actually took out the auto-exec and sysconfig in Windows 10 because I don't see it in the msconfig anymore.
Oh, okay,
Normally
okay,
where you would see that. So.
okay. But you know, that's a constant state of flux sometimes, those things, and they do eventually deprecate stuff. It takes them a long while. But there was still a point of time when the win.ini and system.ini files, as I said, were still used, and that may be harkening back to that. But it's always good to research these things, to look at them again if, Microsoft changes something behind the scenes that they don't publish.
The Windows shell values is basically whenever you start Windows, your start menu, everything like that, and it's a little bit different in 10 now, but Explorer.exe is basically what runs and allows you to interface with Windows. So Explorer.exe is your shell, and you can attach things to run alongside of that shell using these Windows shell values. So if something shows up in here, you definitely want to check more into it and see why that's running attached with Windows Explorer.
Interestingly enough, you can actually replace the shell with almost any application. And, so for instance, you see kiosk PCs a lot. So they've effectively, and there's a little bit more involved in it with some of those for security concerns, but they effectively replace the Windows shell with, their application to present their data. And therefore, sort of everything else in Windows kind of gets hidden behind the scenes there, no way to access it or bring it up. With a few exceptions, keyboard shortcuts and a few things. But the shell is just a program that gets launched by default when Windows starts effectively.
Yep. And that, a lot of the times, I think, is where you get some of the malware, where as soon as you log into Windows, it just gives you a program. Instead of logging you in. So a lot of your threatware that's like, oh, you have thousands of viruses installed, you need to clean up your computer before we can let you access it. That's basically what it's replacing there, is that shell value. Known DLLs, these are kind of like program libraries that things can take advantage of. That's what a DLL is. And it has kind of like shortcode, basically. You call it, and it does a whole lot of stuff for you. Known DLLs, Nick, do you have some more specifics on what that actually means? Because I'm not sure.
No, it's just a registry key that malware likes to infect.
Yeah, no,
there's only like a dozen legitimate files that will ever be in there.
Yeah, that's what I use.
Known DLLs is a location where all the access DLLs are indexed effectively, and I guess manipulating that information could alter how things are done by malware. But you've never seen the known DLLs, Brownlee? I'm surprised.
Well, I've probably seen it, but I didn't know why.
Well, I'm a little unclear. Yeah, because I honestly, the known DLLs, I don't know that I've so much ever really had an infection that really had that to be an issue. But like some things, even if there's not an existing infection out there that
it's been a long time. Let me just stop it right here. It's been a long time since it's really been an issue that I'm aware of, but I think it's still checked by every anti-malware thing out there, and
it's for the sake of being thorough and the fact that it is a possible realm. Just because, like I said, maybe current malware isn't specifically taking advantage of it, it is an avenue.
I think I was gonna add more to that. I think the more that I was gonna add to that is I believe in 10 or 8 or 10 they quit using that entirely just because of the potential for abuse, and there's no reason to have it apparently anyway.
Yeah,
I think so. It was one of those keys. It was either known DLLs or it was something that you find in it's like obsolete now.
I think that's the load legacy or legacy load run.
No, not those. Not those.
But anyway, most of the ones you can see in here are actually related to Windows internal things like the Shell 32, the kernel 32, and various things for actually interfacing with Windows and showing you all the fancy menus and these Windows forms even. So, Win logon notify keys is kind of like the.
I think that was it. I think that's the one they quit. They quit.
Oh, WinLogon. Yeah. That.
They quit.
I
They
can see
quit. They
that.
quit. They
I can see
quit.
that.
Processing that key. Doesn't matter what's in there now.
Yeah, and basically this was kind of like the shell, but instead of replacing Explorer or adding on top of Explorer, it basically every time you logged into Windows, it would run these programs as well. So
Those DLLs got loaded into every process. Actually,
every process that ran.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I mean, there only
Injection.
needs to be. I think Microsoft had 1,000,001 ways where things could be potentially executed, and I think as they've constantly reviewed some of that, they've changed their minds about why it is necessary to have access to that, and I think this is an example of that where it's just no longer needed, and it's just an exploit now, effectively for malware. And so I would be glad if they deprecated it. I mean,
Okay, stop. Next one, Start Menu Internet. This is where it loads all of the browser options you have. These Explorer ones you can't actually delete because they are used for Explorer.exe and several other functions of Windows depend on finding Internet Explorer, which is why you can't remove it from Windows. But your other ones like Chrome and Firefox and Safari, you can delete all those out, and those won't be just registered browsers or available to, say, start and the Internet option they had before. Is that my correct understanding of those?
I really should
essentially,
stop paying
yeah.
attention.
Yeah,
What was
no,
this
I think you're
now?
right.
Are you
You're
to
right.
start menu
Brantley.
internet? You're talking about no.
Yeah.
Those are the entries in like the top of the start menu that launch your internet.
That's what he just said. Yeah.
That's just this. Well, he said he has to start paying attention now. So.
Oh yeah. Usually you select which one is actually default, through the properties of the start button, but like Windows 7 at least, I don't know. But yeah, I'm sorry. I'll pay attention or not talk.
Sorry, guest 162. There's not a way to zoom in on the screencast. You can wait, and I'll go back and edit it so I can zoom in a little bit more on these, but not just looking here. Moving on, the search scope values are hooks for that. And actually, I wanted to go back to the start menu internet. Nick, what were some of the reasons for the IE Explorer.exe having to be there?
Does it have to be there?
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't. I mean, if you're not using the Internet Explorer as your default, it?
Well, no,
Yeah, I'm not sure why. Yeah, it has to be there either.
you can't delete them, and they usually would give you that message.
Oh yeah. Try to delete something else. Oh. You probably should have hit the drop down arrow. I think it's going to delete the file and everything. Anyway.
Don't you have to check it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, you don't have to check it if it's highlighted, but out there.
Oh, that's inconsistent behavior then across the uninstaller.
Are you serious?
Yeah, you do have to check it.
Yeah. Oh, you do have to check it. My bad.
So that's another place where maybe we could.
Yeah. Okay. Shut up.
Yeah. Deleting IE isn't recommended. Why not edit the registry manual to remove any hijacks? So that was the other part, is that they can add on hijacks to here. But you didn't give an explanation of why it isn't recommended.
Oh, well, sorry. I thought you were just asking what it was, and you weren't asking that at all. So I was just wasn't paying attention. But yes, yeah.
But this is where you can see, like, if they have a web page added onto this. Whenever you tried to start Chrome, it would start that.
Well, they don't have to just use a web page. They can do an executable too.
Or any kind of options there.
And the executable that the malicious software could always replace any value with can, of course, then in turn find and launch the executable that the user thought was going to be launched, and that's why most people never notice.
Yeah. Yeah. Good
Um,
point. Chaining things.
XMX, I know it's hard to see, but there's not really anything that you need to see in detail on these windows. We're kind of going over just the various registry locations and why you would want to look into them more. So, I mean, really, it's not something that you need to see specific details on any of these items. And if you wanted to, you can start up dFunk on your system and be able to check those out more too, or wait for the YouTube and I'll zoom in a little bit on them. So. The search thing, I think, is along the same lines of the hijacking, where they can add on additional search items or even completely replace where the search stuff goes. Browser helper objects. This is one of the notorious malware infections, especially for crapware, where they add in every time you launch Internet Explorer, especially, you'll get these.
Now, Edge does not have browser helper objects or plugins or anything else right now, from what I understand. So this won't be affecting that browser. And I'm very glad to see Microsoft moving away from Internet Explorer. But yeah, this used to raise hell in the old days. Not quite as common any longer, but still.
Yeah, and these are focused on Internet Explorer. Chrome has its own extensions. Firefox has its own plugins.
Safari, all the other ones. Yeah.
The other important places in the registry are your services.
Oh, yeah.
Basically everything that controls your services, which if we go into computer management here, your services.
Notice again, this is just another example of how long it would take you to manually do this process using the built-in Windows tools versus doing it from d7II. If you just noticed, I mean, Brantley knew exactly where he was going, and he used a shortcut, and so people could conceivably be doing it even slower than he is. He's doing it at least average speed, if not probably above average. And the same process, and Brantley's obviously not, rushing against the clock in d7II either. He's just casually clicking, like you might in a regular troubleshooting scenario.
Yeah.
But you can see it just pops up much more quickly, the internal mechanisms of d7II versus the alternatives in Windows. I think that alone should be mentioned, and that alone will probably save you time in d7II, if nothing else. Sorry, I just wanted to throw that out.
And some of these services that are loaded in the registry keys aren't even available for access in here, or are named something completely different from what you expect. So that's why it's helpful to look in dFunk, so you can kind of see more about what those services are, if they're starting up automatically or manually or things like that.
The uninstaller in comparison to programs and features in Windows, or remove programs for that matter. All of the functionality in d7II is extremely, it'll produce the entries that are typically hidden from you by the built-in Windows things. And you'll find a huge discrepancy in in those lists, like just hypothetically as an example, the add remove programs list, and what like the uninstaller or something like that will show you. But that's just an example. All these lists in here, all these screens that we're going on, they typically will give you more detailed information and more access to beneath the surface type stuff than Windows will.
So the other services that are important to note are going to be your safe mode services, and these are ones that start up with every time you start Windows in safe mode. Safe mode is kind of supposed to be a lockdown, slim version of Windows without third-party things or anything else running other than what you need to run and interface with Windows itself. But malware can hide itself in safe mode services so that it still starts up even in safe mode. So that's good to note and check into items that do show up in here. enum root keys. Nick, do you have some more info on that one? enum.
Those are like drivers and stuff in Device Manager. Man, it's getting late for me. I actually have to go in a few minutes, by the way.
All right.
I can. He's right about that. I
Boy
believe
has a football game. Gonna go watch.
the enum root is going to be sort of the hardware registry hive.
I'm thinking it's like that's like the legacy items and not the
The
plugin.
legacy items that's right, because you could have software drivers for software drivers that are actually malicious for things. It's very common, for instance, like all Dell systems typically
All right,
have
all right, all right.
entries to.
Let's wrap it up quicker because we are past the hour time anyway.
Oh, jeez.
Shared task scheduler is just where things can start up quickly, and all of these, again, just to reiterate for Tank and Johnny and any other people learning about the registry out there, these are just ones that are locations that are hidden in the registry, and instead of trying to search manually through the registry for them, you can find them here. And most of these places are all going to be places where malware is prevalent or has been prevalent in the past, and it's just a good idea to check and make sure you don't see anything. Your last few ones I just want to note on real quick. The task scheduler just means at a time there's a scheduled task that's going to be run and might be starting malware that way or reinstalling it.
Windows Task Scheduler, it's a Windows function. Hold on. No, this is important. The Windows Task Scheduler, okay, that's not malicious in and of itself. It's what's actually kicking off processes. These are the ones these are the processes that it's kicking off. So, just to reiterate, Task Scheduler is always running as part of modern OSs.
Yeah, but I mean, that's kind of something you could have picked up just from having a task scheduler. Because, I mean, obviously you want to automate some things to run sometimes. But anyway, we digress again. Shell execute hooks and shell service object delay loads are ways that malware can add on to Explorer exe again and also start up later as well. So those are just two good things to see if anything is attaching to those and running. Most of my whitelist have these things all covered, so that's why you're not seeing anything in here. There are
Image
some
file
default
execution options.
And the last one is the IFEOs, and this is so that it's a Windows route of taking a file name and running a different file or executing something different anytime it sees that file name. You can kind of think of it like your text messaging short text. So if you type in ATA or ATM, it can automatically replace it with at the moment, or something like that. But this is basically if malware wanted to, every time you ran Internet Explorer, run the malware version of Internet Explorer instead, it could easily say ie.exe run malware.exe.
Okay, another common example is if any of you are familiar with the tool Process Explorer out there, it can replace Task Manager. The method by which it performs that replacement is using an IFEO entry. But there are malicious ways to use these entries, and there are useful ways, like even in malware removal, you might create an IFEO entry for the malicious application if you have no other way of removing it. What would happen is it wouldn't run any, if you left it blank, it wouldn't run anything when Windows tried to execute those things, and so effectively the malware won't load on the system any longer. And that's
you don't have to leave it blank. Actually, you just you give it a dummy file name, just something that doesn't exist.
Oh, just a file that doesn't exist. Okay.
And this is an option in D7 also.
Yeah, so it's
IFEO modifier. It's in the main menu on the left.
So that's where we've taken a route that typically malware used and kind of turned it against itself. Yeah.
It also has an offline version.
And from a historical perspective, it was originally put in for debugging applications. You would basically allow a debugger to access an application.
It is still very much used for that, and some other.
Yeah, so that was the thinking behind it. It wasn't Microsoft isn't, I don't think, trying to have people break into their systems, but obviously there's a lot of holes.
So the last spot we want to touch on is just some common registry hijacks. These actually are legacy ones that used to be used quite often and still could be, so you definitely want to check into them. But this interface makes it a little bit easier to check these specific keys because it'll tell you if everything is okay and show up in red if they're not. just some quick ones is like replacing the explorer.exe so it launches a different program instead of running that. Every time you run Task Manager, it could run a different program. For narrator and some of your accessibility options, it can replace those and run those. App.int DLLs and user ints, these are kind of ways to quickly start up items and attached with Windows. Gina, I think, is your networking stuff. Is that right?
What is that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, China. Yeah.
Gina.
Yeah. I think
China.
that's only in one inside of.
That's only when like other letters are in front of.
Yeah,
that
it makes it
they
long.
Use say I instead of E.
Gina.
Long.
I think that's actually another one of those acronyms you're supposed to say out, GINA. System and UI host, basically similar. The key thing to remember about these is you do have an option to replace it with the default version. So usually there is a default way that these should look, and you want to apply changes and then immediately repopulate to see if malware is actively changing these again. And that's another way that you can quickly tell that maybe there's still some malware active on the system that you haven't cleaned out, is if it's actively changing these program or these registry keys every time you change them. That means that you have to go and look for another program that's running and working. So I think that about covers everything we can in the registry for a quick overviews type thing. Anybody else have anything quick they want to add on to those? I didn't think so. We covered it pretty well. So I think next time.
No. I want to go over GINA
You're
because
muted.
it's not about. I want to go over GINA because it's.
That's not about the registry. We'll cover that in another topic for networking.
Because it's not networking related at all, actually, and
All
it's been deprecated since Vista. Vista deprecated it.
All right. Well, we'll go over it in another topic another day. So that was our registry overview for people that might not have been tech inclined for over their lifetime, and things that a lot of us techs glaze over sometimes that automatically assume should be known about Windows and working with it. Tank or Johnny, do y'all have any specific questions on any of that information we covered, or just a wealth of it?
Not specifically, but I'm going to rewatch the show. I did look away several times because tickets come in.
Did y'all learn anything interesting that y'all didn't know before?
Yeah, did you pick up anything? I thought there should have been at least a few opportunities in there for transmission.
Oh,
y'all
yeah, I'm not
did.
saying I didn't pick up anything.
Oh.
Put them on the spot.
I was talking and
I like
muted.
putting people on the spot.
I don't. Like
Anyway,
being-
Well, I just want to point out that you and Michael learned something in the show. So
Yeah, no, we did.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And by the way, GINA stands for Graphical Identification and Authentication. Graphical Identification
You
and.
just will not drop things when people tell you to drop it. We told you we'd go over that in a whole nother show. You haven't. He just dropped out. What a douche.
don't say that. You can say that about him.
I'll edit it out. I'm editing it later anyways.
Okay.
Oh, I thought you said drop out. I'm sorry. No, did you say when you said drop? I immediately exited.
Yeah, you just immediately exited. That's fine.
You completely missed him calling you a douche.
Yeah, right
Yeah,
after.
yeah. See, I could see far enough into the future to know when that's happening. Sometimes, not all. Here, I kind of sensed the disturbance in the force and had to bail. But I'll assume everything you said was nice and it was admirable or
Taken in
admiration
light.
of myself. And if it wasn't, you'll I don't judge people, so but you will be judged ultimately by something.
All right, we'll take that into account. So if you want to go over Gina later, and when you're hosting, you can spend an entire day on that topic. We'll be more than
Oh, but again, I don't think we should spend much time discussing it. Actually, moving forward in detail, just
Schedule my
because of its
That's-
deprecation. But
That's what I was
historically,
telling you. Is let's
context.
drop it. What did you say, Proctor?
I said I'll schedule my dentist appointment that day for the
See, this is okay. Tuesday is when I get my moment. I gotta wait for Tuesday.
All right.
Thursday.
So, went over the registry, talked a lot about various things. Maybe some techs didn't know a lot of techs, and all of us techs don't know everything. So that's why we like to have everybody's input on it, and especially for people that haven't been working in the tech industry over the time.
That's why I want to be
it's
accurate.
easy things.
That's why I want us to be accurate. If we're going to be teaching, if we're going to ultimately be imparting our knowledge, we should impart it accurately. So I'm sorry, but keep.
When we said I think, and we don't need to go into specific details, but anyway, we went over a bunch of topics. Hope you all enjoyed the show. We're past our hour, so we need to get back to some other work here, but we'll go through and edit this some so that we can zoom in and you can see things that you might have missed. Otherwise, I hope everyone has a great day. We'll be back on tomorrow at 6 p.m. I actually have an interesting topic, I think, lined up for that, and we'll be going over some different things there. So
We should let them know ahead of the show what the topics are, so people can tune in if it's interesting.
No, they can tune in and be interested or not when it's on, and then watch it later on YouTube.
Okay, all right. But this has been thought through all from all angles. I just thought of it now. I just was, But,
I thought it. I mean, if you
Okay,
want to let
okay.
people know what you're going to talk about on Tuesday, feel free to go ahead and do that.
Well,
Besides
you
China.
need to serialize. You need to serialize people to the show. I think there's a serialization concept, and so that means you have to hook them to the next episode every time. Why do you think
I'll be hosting and giving
serialized
some
shows-
interesting content. So
Like,
that's
why do you
what I
think
was saying.
Why do you think the Daily Show at the end always says a little bit about what they're going to show next time, and every other show they say what their next
show?
guest is, or
The
whatever
Daily
late
Show
shows,
doesn't do that.
all like a late show and all the ones they all
Because they have guests like scheduled ahead of time.
well
And
yeah
a lot of those are
but-
previously taped.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, they usually already know like the dialogue of the show and everything when they do that.
Yeah.
They can show you clips if they,
They
want
have,
to.
like,
Okay, but
scripts
again,
and
but they
stuff,
do,
so.
but then if
We can't have a commercial for something we haven't done at all yet.
no, but you can bring up you can do what you can. I'm not saying
Anyway,
to go into
I
that
like
detail.
I like to leave people wondering, and I feel like curiosity is a better hook. So on mine,
the
I've
cat
been
might
touting it
disagree.
all
The
week.
cat might disagree.
All right. Well, I've been touting it all week that I do have something interesting lined up, and I think it'll be a nice show and topic to cover. So
Okay, well,
if you're
it's a surprise
available
then.
tomorrow, 6 p.m. Otherwise, we'll have it edited and up on our YouTube channel after that. You can watch it anytime over the weekend. And yeah, so we will be back tomorrow, 6 p.m. Hope everybody has a great day. Shout out again to Sharif for joining us and listening to the show and making all your crew listen to it, hopefully extremely loud volumes. And shout out to your crew at Future Technology IT.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate
Thank you guys
the
for watching and using our tools. And again, keep in mind if we value your opinion highly. So if you
Yeah, and if you want the show
Time.
changed, or if you want to, please,
No.
we'd like the recommendations, because if it's whether you're forced to watch this or not, we want to make it worth your time. And if there's something we should be focusing on, or maybe tweaking the format to some extent to make it
let
better
people
for
know
everyone.
ahead of time of what we're going to be talking about.
Well, you tell us what you want, and we'll do our best to accommodate.
Yeah. So anyway, that was our show today. Hope everybody had a great time. We enjoyed doing it. We'll talk to you all later. Bye.
Peace.
Good evenings.